Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Tal. With me here is Lazybones, and welcome to the first episode of 2025. Lazy, how you doing?
Do you want lunch? I don't know. That is a quote from Planet 51.
Oh, right. It's the one where he's holding up the rat to his face. Do you want lunch? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, because we have a movie to talk about.
We'll save that for later.
We'll save that for later. Yes, let's talk about the first movie. The first movie I want to talk about is the one I have on DVD. So we'll talk about that one first. That being Planet 51. The one of two space movies we're talking about today. As I've said in the past, I want a tradition going where the first episode of each new year is about space movies in honor of Chris. And so we're here to talk about Planet 51.
Yep.
So Lazy, why don't you you know what? You start off on Battlefield Earth. I'll start off on Planet 51. I was the one who suggested this. Why don't I start with it?
Of course, yeah.
So it's Planet 51 is a animated film from 2009, and one starring our favorite mineral, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself. And it's basically just a movie about, well, you ever heard of an alien invasion film? We'll just reverse the roles where a human goes to an alien planet instead, and now he's the alien. And that's Brilliant. The movie. Yeah, that's the movie. Look, you know what? I'll go to bat for that as a concept. I think that's a good idea for a concept. Like, oh, you've heard of alien invasion movies. Now we're the aliens going to an alien planet. That's actually kind of a cool idea. Because I remember watching the trailer for this growing up, and I remember thinking that was a cool idea. Like, oh yeah, humans going to an alien planet, and now we're the aliens. But I only remember the trailer because it shows the one scene that kind of shows the irony in that concept, where it's, oh, the ship comes down to this alien planet and out walks an astronaut putting the flag onto the ground. You know, that's the trailer, and that's all it shows in the trailer, because it's like, oh, that's what we're banking the movie on, is this concept. But the concept is shown immediately within the trailer, and so you think, okay, how else do you make an hour and a half long movie out of that concept? You know,
it's really struggling, because I think it is exactly 90 minutes long, I want to say, including credits. So
yeah, I mean,
I was looking at the timeline, or I was looking at the time code, like, for at one point. It's pretty much just 1 hour and 30 minutes. That's nothing more, nothing less. So
I mean, cool. It doesn't overstay its welcome, but even still, it does feel like it's being stretched, having just this concept. Like, the filmmakers thought of the trailer before they thought of the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Did you see this movie when you were a kid?
No. Well, technically, I feel like I have a memory of watching it at, like, a friend of a friend's house. Like, it was one of those moments where it was kind of just on the TV when I arrived at the house, and caught like the first 10 or 15 minutes, but then never finished it until now, when I actually like watched it for real. It was one of those movies where I never technically watched it, but I knew of it.
I want to say I actually saw this in theaters when I was a kid.
No kidding.
Yeah, I still remember, for some reason, even though I haven't seen this movie in like 15 years or something like that, I remember certain scenes of the movie, actually. And one of the childhood memories I have of this movie, for some reason, is there was this like kids cuisine commercial that would air, like, featuring Planet 51, because like I had the mascot, like, penguin character who was like stuck on the Planet 51. You have to buy my product in order to save me from being stuck on this planet or something. And I actually like felt bad. I was like, oh no, I guess there's gonna be no more kids cuisine commercials now that he's stuck on the planet.
That's awesome, actually. That sounds great. That is just proof that this movie is part of a bygone era. Oh man, late 2000s, dude. That was an era. I miss it so
It feels
much.
like it's part of like a weird 2000s era of like non-Disney, Pixar, or DreamWorks animated movies. Like it
Yes.
feels like it kind of belongs in the same like ballpark as like the Jimmy Neutron movie or Barnyard, basically.
I would even maybe not Jimmy Neutron because well, I guess quality wise doesn't matter, but yeah, I would say maybe even amongst movies like Open Season,
Oh
um,
yeah,
yeah, that kind of level of animated films, maybe even like Freebirds, where it's not part of a mainline animation studio, so you're just like, who are these people? But at least with something like Freebirds and Open Season, those movies have garnered kind of a cult meme following with them,
oh for sure.
whereas this movie doesn't have that. I literally have not thought about this movie until I found the DVD of it. Just to go a little bit into the DVD, it's a Blockbuster rental. Not
Ooh,
mine.
sweet.
Yeah, this actually harkens back to the very first episode of the podcast where my copy of The Eye was also a Blockbuster rental that I just happened to have. Again, not my original Blockbuster rental. I just happened to have a movie that was rented from Blockbuster and then just never returned because the Blockbuster probably closed. Like the people who probably had this at one point rented it, forgot they had it, and then when they tried to return it, that Blockbuster closed. So they're like, "Well, I guess we have Planet 51 now forever."
Yeah, I actually do have one DVD. I think I told you which one I have that still has a Blockbuster sticker on it. It's Shark Tale, actually.
Oh, that's so funny, Shark Tale. Yeah, you know what?
I
Even though,
apparently asked my mom to get it when I was younger, and
uh,
like apparently after I watched it, I told her I didn't like it, so I made her waste $20 on it.
Shark Tale, what's not to like about Shark Tale? It's funny because Shark Tale, even though it is DreamWorks, I probably would put it in the same level of animated kids movie as Planet 51.
It kind of is. I will say, I think Shark Tale, objectively speaking, is like a way worse movie than Planet 51. Not saying Planet 51's good,
Hmm.
but when I was watching it, I was like, this is just really bland, but there's nothing inherently horrible about it.
Yeah. I
Because like I saw the reviews, they were pretty brutal actually of this movie when it came out, and it's
yeah.
not good. It's
No.
like it's definitely nothing interesting, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen worse.
Oh,
You
I've
know?
absolutely seen worse. I'll go to bat for some things in this movie. Like I don't think it's inherently the worst thing ever. I think that concept is ripe for being actually interesting. The idea of going to a different planet as a human and then you're the alien in that situation. I even
I
like
agree. I like that idea a lot too.
Yeah. I even like the designs. Well, not the designs. I like the ideas of the designs of a alien planet that is kind of this retro 1950s aesthetic to it. Um, and
I do too.
I think it's also really clever because whether this was intentional or not, it's kind of hard to tell. But like, the fact that the astronaut comes down and it kind of and when they actually they actually learn to get along towards the end, it kind of reinvigorates the idea of like these characters then going into the 60s to then become pioneers of space, because the 60s is when we as a species went to space. um Again, probably unintentional, because I think the one thing they say about the 60s is like when Dwayne the Rock Johnson's character is just like, hey, let me know when you guys get to the 60s, it's gonna be crazy. It's like
Yeah, that was such a weird way to end the movie. I
yeah.
think like
Yeah.
it just immediately ends,
Yeah.
and then like there's no like emotional goodbye or anything like that. Just
Yeah.
nope, that's it.
I mean, these were not great characters to begin with, so it's not like I needed them to be
Yeah,
emotional or anything. But yes, you're right. Like a better movie would have more mature emotions amongst these characters, but that would require them to be interesting characters.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, there's so many sci-fi movie references in this movie. Basically,
Oh,
from like they get like I wouldn't mind it if it was a bit more clever or it was like properly integrated into the movie in terms of like it being a joke. Like
yes.
I think the xenomorph dog, the dogs being like kind of
Xenomorphs.
like xenomorphs sort
Yeah.
of. I think that's kind of clever,
That's
but
funny. Yeah.
like when they're like just dropping lines from like the Lost in Space TV series or like Alien or just referencing the music of 2001. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, this is basically stuff that every parody or comedy movie has referenced like a billion times already.
Yeah, there's literally a scene where Dwayne the Rock Johnson astronaut is just quoting Star Wars, and he's literally just like, "You're against the Rebel Alliance" or something like that, and then he starts quoting Terminator, and it's like,
Yeah, and like a commercial, and he says "Hasta la vista, baby."
yeah, it's like, okay, is the joke that it's not? Is the joke supposed to be that it's not what he's not referencing sci-fi things anymore? He's just quoting whatever, like that scene in Shark Tale when fucking Oscar's going, "Are you not entertained? You had me at hello," and stuff like that. Yeah, like, is that the
Yeah,
joke? Because that's not funny. Like, I don't
and they're
know.
not stuff that kids are gonna get either. Like
Yeah,
I know
that
that
too.
I know I published my Letterboxd review, and I noticed that Ketchup like made a point saying like those jokes are for the adults though, and I'm
Yeah,
yeah, I know that it is, but like I don't see any of the adults finding the execution of those jokes funny though.
right. Yeah, no,
And
it's
also it's also a point I remember like Ebert said in his Shark Tale review, like all of like what kind of kid is going to understand a reference to Jerry Maguire though? Like there's a good way of balancing like jokes that appeal to kids and adults. I know that's something that Shrek does,
mhm.
well, like where obviously it references stuff like The Matrix, but like it's still funny in its own right though. It just happens to be even funnier when you're an adult though.
Yeah, I'm probably butchering this, but I remember there was a review for something. I don't remember for what. But this guy was talking about the reference humor they do on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Um, whenever they made a joke to something older, but the user, even though they didn't understand the reference, they still appreciated that a reference was being made, and that maybe someday they would someday get the reference. Um, and yeah, in that context, Mystery Science Theater 3000, something that is supposed to be kind of on the fly joking, poking fun at a movie, you know, that's where that would apply. Whereas if you're writing these jokes to get a reaction out of the parents of the kids, and the parents aren't really into it, because again, yeah, it's a movie made for kids. Let's be real here. Like, this movie, it is made for families, but the target audience is supposed to be kids. And so just because you craft these jokes for the parents doesn't mean the parents are going to really be interested in the movie for the entire duration when it's written like this.
Yeah, and if again, like you're bringing up Open Season or no Freebirds in particular, it feels like in the same caliber as that in terms of like they thought of the idea of it before they thought of a story.
Yeah. But at least with I already said, but at least with Open Season and Freebirds, there is that memey irony to
Meme
it.
factor, yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of like funny lines in it that you can basically just caption and whatever. There's nothing in that though. There's nothing in this movie though about
No.
that
Yeah.
kind of is
Yeah.
in that same ballpark.
Yeah, Freebirds, you're absolutely right. They came up with the trailer or the concept, but they didn't know how to really make it into a full-length movie. But like, I feel as though they had even less though, because how do you make a time travel turkey movie? How do you just come up with that on the fly? And they just did whatever. And because they did whatever, they made something so insane that to this day people are still talking about it. Whether or not that's because, oh, Shea Frillis watched it and so I have to meme it too, or because it is actually funny. Look, I thought it was funny before James watched it. Let me just say that. So
I actually liked Freebirds when I was younger. When the
right.
part when the part like when like the red turkey just like says the line about going back in time to the first Thanksgiving. I thought that was the funniest thing ever when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So
Personally, I'm a fan of the guards in hazmat suits. I think they're the fucking funniest thing in the world.
yeah,
um,
yeah, and that's why again I feel like that movie might be objectively worse, but I think it's obviously more entertaining than this,
yeah,
which is kind of
so much more
it's
entertaining.
kind of this is like it's basically every sort of like ET story where you have to save the alien from the government, and
Yeah. Oh.
win the girl in the end. Basically,
Oh,
it's
dude.
it's basically it's it's almost kind of like it feels like something that they kind of like a script they found in a recycled trash bin, basically, that they
Dude.
just decided to turn into a movie.
Yeah, E.T. Again, they reference it too. Don't worry. Remember when they like fly in
Yeah,
front of the moon? It's just like,
yeah.
yeah, we get it.
That joke was done better in one of the Naked Gun sequels. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember that might be Airplane 2 or one of the Naked Gun sequels where like I forget what the context of the scene, but like they're just like flying into the air after some like freak accident, and like it just makes the ET like silhouette in the moon basically. I don't know. I haven't seen those movies in a long time, but I remember something like that.
I honestly don't remember the Naked Gun sequels having a. I know the Naked Gun sequels probably like made reference humor. Don't like absolutely they did. But God, I don't remember the ET one. It's probably there though. I don't doubt that for a second that they wouldn't take the opportunity. They absolutely would.
Yeah.
Um,
They also referenced Apollo 13 and Singing in the Rain.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's too. So again, to go back on the whole Terminator thing, they're just referencing whatever because yeah, Apollo 13 applies because yes, they have. That's a space movie, so of course you're gonna have the astronaut be like, Houston, we have a problem. It's done. Yeah. Oh God, the joke isn't even funny. I just remembered what it was. It's when he's talking. It's when Dwayne the Rock Johnson is talking to the Justin Long alien, and even though he already knows the Justin Long alien can speak English, he goes, either you're trying to communicate with me or you're trying to mate with me. And he goes, Houston, we have a little problem. It's just like, okay, the joke doesn't make sense. You already know he speaks English. And also, it's just not a funny joke. It's a really painful usage of the fucking Houston, we have a problem line.
Yeah, it's like one of the producers just like was reading the script and said, it would be funny if you have to say the Houston we have a problem line because that's a space movie.
That's a space movie. We have to put it in the movie. Yeah. Oh God, it's so painful.
They also referenced the Kids' Choice Awards too at one point. That I guess that one was kind of funny because it felt like a more specific reference of anything.
Yeah, it was weirdly dated. I know the Kids' Choice Awards are still a thing, but they're not as big a thing as they once were. So back in 2009, you could just be like, oh, I was supposed to be at the Kids' Choice Awards. And I'm sure kids would just like soy jack at that, being like, oh, I know what that is. But now...
But kids don't watch the Kids' Choice Awards anymore because kids do not care about Nickelodeon anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was pretty nostalgic. I was just like, I remember when I used to watch the Kids' Choice Awards back in 2009. Those were the days. But yeah, they do reference the Kids' Choice Awards. I remember just being like, oh, I mean,
and all the aliens just do. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that just goes. That applies to what we were saying earlier about how this is such like a late 2000s animated movie, and I'm weirdly nostalgic for it. Even though I didn't grow up watching this movie a lot, I am nostalgic for it because it reminds me of that whole era.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's good. I'm looking at it with rose tinted glasses, being like, man, I remember this era, but. I mean, that doesn't make the movie good. Sorry, you go ahead now.
I think this is like a less entertaining movie than something like Barnyard because that movie is just so insane, even though that movie is objectively worse.
But that movie,
that
movie has Biggie Cheese.
Yeah, that has Biggie Cheese. But if we're judging this movie based off of those, like your Freebirds, your Barnyards, your Open Seasons, this is like less entertaining than any of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's a better movie probably, but like that's just not overall a very high bar.
Yeah, because it's not the worst thing ever, like we've been saying. I mean, again, it's basically like you said, it's an ET ripoff where it's they have to protect the alien, except the alien is a human now. It's like, okay, and it plays that fine for what it is. It's just
they
not
don't do anything special with it.
No, there's really nothing that special with it. I mean, I guess they had The Rock, and this is one of the earliest usage of The Rock in an animated film.
It doesn't matter. That was in Planet 51.
Yeah. But then that doesn't really mean anything because then he went on to voice in other movies.
Yeah. Some of which were even shittier, though.
Yeah, that's true, too. but some were better. Well, not some. I think one. I mean, Moana.
One was better.
Yeah, yeah,
One pretty good one.
yeah, Moana, and then
Yeah.
what else was he? Well, what? Okay, what else has he voiced in? He's done a voice in Moana 2, obviously. And then I guess the only other voice role I can think of is League of Super Pets.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I keep forgetting that movie exists.
Yeah, it's not great.
I mean, I guess if we're talking about that, that kind of feels like that movie kind of feels like that's part of a different era, like the late 2000s animated movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it kind of feels like it's in that same open season or Freebirds category, but it's just not as insane or entertaining.
right.
I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but it
It's
doesn't seem that way to me.
it does seem like that kind of movie, yes, but it's even more embarrassing because it came out in 2022. And so it doesn't have that defense of, oh, this was just part of the time. It's like, no, we should know better by now, and we don't. So I think it's even more pathetic because of that. I not to sound like a grumpy old man, but I seriously cannot see being nostalgic for a lot of things from the late 2010s, early 2020s. Maybe I'll be wrong in due time, but that, I don't know, the cringe of now is not, I don't think is going to age as well as the cringe of yesteryear, you know?
Yeah, I don't think, especially with 2024, I don't see as many animated movies like having, or like people growing up, children today growing up and having as much of a nostalgic attachment to them
Yeah.
as like we would have been with our like even the kind of crappy ones that we grew up with, you
Yeah,
know?
because
Because there's just less variety now, though.
Yeah.
It's just more
yeah, and
of the same.
like you said, Barnyard, that's a funny movie. It's not great, but I remember it fondly, and I could watch it again because it's
I watched it on
stupid.
DVD when I was younger, and I liked it. So.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's not great. But I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I would go to bat for Barnyard as being entertaining. Now,
I even watched the TV show when I was younger too.
oh, dude,
so.
Back in the Barnyard was so funny. It was its own beast, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, not to say that all 2000s cringy movies are fun. You know, we're talking about Planet 51 after all, and that movie is just, it's not great. It's fine. Like, I think I would put this on for a kid and just have them watch it, but I don't intend for them to get anything out of it, you know?
It's a slightly below average movie that doesn't do anything
Yeah.
interesting with its premise. Honestly, like it's kind of a waste of just making the whole society aliens if they're just gonna do human stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's like they listen to like song that humans have listened to. Like they listen to what's that song from Grease again? It's called Grease Lightning.
Grease Lightning. Yeah, that was
and
weird.
they also and like there's a one point where like someone drops an iPod basically and it plays Macarena on it. So like, what's the point? You know?
Oh god, that was so cringy. Yeah. Oh yeah, and they have a Mr.
Was that the iPod owned by Dwayne Johnson's character?
Yes.
Or was that
no?
Okay.
Well, because it's the 50s, so they don't have iPods in the 50s.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's Dwayne the Rock Johnson being like, I got an iPod, but then they shoot it, and so they can't really do any more jokes with that. That was the one joke they did, was the Macarena.
Yeah, and the iPod thing was already dated today.
Yeah, that too. Oh god, yeah, that's right. 2009 iPods would have been the shit at the time, but it's like not anymore.
It's like watching a movie with fidget spinners today.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Although I guess so, yeah. Fidget spinners aren't really a thing anymore.
It's so weird looking at the voice cast for this movie because
let's talk about the voice cast.
It genuinely feels like none of the actors that were listed on here were even in the movie. Like, Dwayne Johnson doesn't sound like Dwayne Johnson.
Well, Dwayne Johnson I can see as being an egotistical kind of jockey dude bro guy, like the astronaut is trying to be. Although I think that's a weird trope to have as an astronaut, because it's like, okay, you're an astronaut, you're a mathematician, but they're treating, he's acting like a football player, so it's weird. But I'll allow it. It's just, yeah, the character design is weird for a Dwayne Johnson voice role, I will say. He's like this white ginger dude, but he's voiced by, you know, Dwayne Johnson. I don't know. I feel like you need somebody either get a different character design or a different voice actor for that role, you know?
Yeah, it's like it feels like they kind of like they decided what actors they wanted in the movie before they conceived the
Yeah.
characters.
So, I mean, I can see Dwayne Johnson being the top billing. It's like, fine, but then have a better character design with that. But yeah. And then, oh,
He
God.
doesn't do a lot of Dwayne Johnson things either. He
That
doesn't like
too.
he doesn't do the eyebrow raise. He doesn't
Yeah.
lift any muscles, or he doesn't lift anything huge. Like at least like Maui from Moana does that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Maui's a much better suited role for him, where he's that egotistical, kind of douchey character, but with a heart of gold, you know?
yeah,
Um, oh god, yeah. Some of these other actors, so like character actors like Jessica Biel, Justin Long, and Sean William Scott, total 2000s actors to put in these roles.
John
And
Cleese.
oh, dude, well, John Cleese, man, he's usually really funny, like one of my favorite comedic actors ever, and he's
Yeah,
just kind of wasted. You know, I don't remember him.
you almost forget that he's in the movie.
Yeah, like I almost thought he was just that one cameo role. Like he was just gonna be on that TV screen because they I don't know I felt like it was gonna be like that. What was that Rob Schneider film we watched for Wheel Night one time where it advertised John Cleese was in it, and then he was only there for 5 seconds at the beginning and 5 seconds at the end.
Yeah,
um, but
Gary Oldman is in this too,
oh yeah, I
and
wanted to talk about Gary Oldman because you know, Dwayne Johnson being kind of miscast. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking making Gary Oldman this American military guy. Like that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's also it doesn't even sound like Gary Oldman that much to be honest either. I know Gary Oldman's kind of like he has a lot of range basically, so he can
Yeah.
basically sound however he wants. But like, if I can't even really tell that it's a great actor voicing the character, then what does that mean? Then that kind of just means they kind of wasted the actor for the role. Then
Yeah, it's a distracting performance because I can tell it's Gary Oldman, but I can't really see a character either. I can almost see a character where where the general's just like, there's this one point where the general says like, they could be manipulating our minds, and he says like, Captain, place me under arrest. Like he's so insane that he wants himself under arrest just in case he's under like the alien spell or whatever. Like, okay, that could be funny. They don't really do much of that, so then that one moment seems kind of out of place. But I would have loved that to like kind of amp up the craziness of this general character. But yeah, you don't really have Gary Oldman voice that. Not that he can't be like a hard ass military character. I mean, he was that in Kung Fu Panda 2 and he played that flawlessly.
oh yeah,
But that was a different character. I feel like I don't know, when you have this hardened Americanized military general, I feel like you need somebody like maybe not necessarily an Arlie Ermy, but an Arlie Ermy type. You know what I mean?
yeah, get J.K. Simmons to do it.
J.K. Simmons could do that. I could see that. Yeah, being this like this fast talking hard ass Americanized general, like that would be awesome. Actually,
Yeah, and it works too because he's actually a genuine voice actor too.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, weird cast, I must say.
Yeah, and oh, did you you were talking about the Star Wars reference before too? There was a part in the movie where someone just said, "Guys, this is so Luke Skywalker."
Oh God, yeah, when Dwayne Johnson's just like, "Oh, this is so Luke Skywalker." Oh, by the way, you guys aren't brother and sister, are you? It's just like, oh, it hurts. Stop it. Stop.
Yeah. There's also a line where I think it might be one of the military leaders. I was just writing this as one of my notes. There is among us an astronaut.
I found that funny. Yeah, he's just like, because he blatantly, yeah, he even says among us pretty, like he kind of separates it from the rest of the sentence. I know this was years before Among Us, but it was suspiciously like it was predicting something.
And yeah, astronauts have helmets pretty similar to the characters Among Us, so you know.
Yeah, wow. Sus.
Did you want to get to the part of the movie, the line where where like Dwayne Johnson's character is like naked and one of the aliens sees him
Yeah.
and it says, "That's a weird spot to have your antenna."
Yeah. I mean, that's also kind of a. I guess they do have antennas, kind of, these aliens, but also I don't know. They seem more like nubs, and also they have two of them. Well, like what? I don't know. I get the joke. Like, oh, haha, they think it's his antenna, like, but it's actually his penis. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
penis joke in a kids movie. I haven't seen that before.
exactly. Oh, you want me to tell you who the producer of this movie is?
Please do. I don't remember.
Well, I was looking at his Wikipedia credits. The only other movie I've seen that he was a producer, a full-on producer, not an executive producer on, years later was Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank.
Okay.
And
Again,
an executive producer on Highlander 2: The Quickening.
that's one of those notorious sequels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I haven't seen yet, but okay, yeah. Interesting filmography, this guy. I must say. Yeah, that's a weird thing. The filmmakers themselves don't seem like people that really moved on to do something else. This kind of seems like
The guy who directed it is named George Blanco, which I guess is fitting because his film resume is pretty blanco.
good one, zinger. Well, because like I'm looking at so Sony distributed this, but they didn't make it. I think this movie was made in
Yeah.
Spain, I want to say.
It was actually animated by a studio called Ilion Animation Studios.
Okay.
I recognize this company because they later went on to do another terrible. Well, I guess this one's not. Well, this one's more terrible than Planet 51. Wonder Park. Like a
Ooh.
decade later, and that was a huge flop.
Ooh, nice. Yeah,
Oh
because
shoot! They also animated the two Skydance animation movies. Luck
oh.
and Spellbound. Those are even worse.
Oh, wow. Planet 51 is looking pretty good now
Yeah,
by
they're
now.
looking pretty good compared to these.
Jesus Christ. Uh
Wow.
yeah, that's weird. Well, cuz like a lot of the trailers for the movies on this DVD were for like Sony distributed stuff. They even advertised like open season 3 and stuff like that. So I was thinking, "Oh, this is like a Sony movie." But I'm thinking, well, no, it wouldn't be because then James would have done it for the Sony ranking. So I don't know. That's just strange to me. That
I think New Line Cinema was actually going to distribute this movie, but for some reason they dropped it a couple months before release, and so Sony just took it from them. For some reason, yeah. Hey, I wonder why.
It's so funny. We don't want to distribute this. Sony, and then
Yeah.
Sony's just like, "Oh, we'll take it. That sounds cool." So, yeah. Again, though, it it's kind of a shame, but also I don't feel too bad because, like we've been saying, it's not inherently that interesting. So, again, unlike Freebirds or Open Season or these other equally lame slash kind of generic, kind of weird kids movies that don't really have an unironic appeal to them, like these do have an ironic appeal to themselves, whereas this one just doesn't. It's just kind of forgotten. There's a reason not that nobody talks about it, but this one's not as remembered fondly as these other movies that have kind of surpassed the test of time, you know?
Yeah, that are either really good or really memeable.
Yeah, exactly. Because
And
that's
Planet 51's neither.
yeah, Planet 51's neither. It's just kind of forgotten. Just kind of this weird moment in time when Dwayne Johnson was just like, I'm gonna voice a character in a kids movie, and
Apparently, Dwayne Johnson actually initially passed on the film, but then he agreed to it at some point. But then he got really upset when he found out that none of the other actors behind the film were actually professional voice actors. So he didn't really have a good idea of whether his voice performance behind it was good, because all of the people, all of the entire rest of the voice cast was not actual voice actors. So
that's strange. Yeah, I mean, he still agreed to it, so What does that say?
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne Johnson kind of. I mean, have you seen what movies he's agreed to star in?
Yeah, the fact that he'd be upset over this one specifically, like really, Dwayne, really. All right then.
Anyway, just looking through my notes or anything else I want to say. There's a part in it where like they say that the human spaceship or the Dwayne Johnson spaceship looks like a flying saucer when it's clearly not a flying saucer though. Like saucers are usually shaped differently.
Ooh, good point. Yeah, they probably just threw that in because it's like you think flying saucer, you think aliens, but the reason it's called a flying saucer is because, famously, whenever you see a flying saucer, it's a flat disc-like shape in the sky.
Yeah, just like that. I don't think they were thinking that hard about it
No.
when they were writing the script. And it's also kind of a shame too because apparently the script writer behind this was actually one of the screenwriters behind the first two Shrek films.
Oh.
I just gave an example of an animated movie earlier that does kind of reference humor a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, two movies anyway.
Huh, I'm not seeing any advertisement being like from the co-writer of Shrek. Oh, I would expect to see that.
He probably wanted his name off of this movie, like
Maybe.
from the advertising.
Yeah, maybe in a trailer they said like from the co-writer of Shrek or something, like, because I feel like in the 2000s you would have absolutely advertised, hey, we have somebody who worked on Shrek on our animated kids movie. Like Shrek was the movie you would advertise somebody on your team was a part of at one point. Like we had the guy who was the janitor at the time when they were making Shrek. It's like
we got Mike Myers' shoe shiner when he was voicing Shrek.
It's like, oh, I gotta go see this movie then. Jeez.
Exactly.
It's tangentially related to Shrek.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, just I honestly don't remember where I got this DVD from. I feel like usually
It came from the sky.
At this point probably. Yeah, because I can usually remember where I've got a DVD or something, like whether I bought it at Bull Moose, whether I found it from the houses I used to clean, whether like I had adopted it from my family collection. Like I don't know, I feel like I can usually tell when and where I got something, where I genuinely don't remember where I would have gotten this Planet 51 DVD. I'm gonna guess I probably got it from a house I used to clean, but I have no memory of which house it would have been.
Yeah, because the movie is not that memorable.
I guess
so it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that shows how not memorable this movie is. So, is there anything else we have to talk about before, just talking about this DVD a little more?
I'm looking through my notes and I don't really see anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it on my end.
Okay. I just want to say last thing is on the menu for this movie, on the DVD menu, there's a section, so it has like, the usual stuff: play, scene selection, setup, bonus features. It also has this section called Want More Fun, and I was like, is that a threat? so I clicked on it, and it's just a singular image of it's just like a still image of a website link, and it says like, visit sonywonder.com to buy more Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever. And yeah, it's advertising like Open Season and Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs and other Sony movies. And I was just kind of taken aback, like, oh, that's weird. Want More Fun. Like, I didn't check to see if the link worked. I think a friend of mine actually tried it, and it does work. It just brings you to this crappy website that just has all the Sony animated films on DVD, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Want More Fun is the less cynical version of saying buy more of our products.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the first DVD I've seen that happen where like it has a still image advertising more DVDs of stuff. There was my Halloween 3 Season of the Witch DVD that I had originally when I did the Halloween movies a couple years back. It was like this weird DVD that it was like this, this kind of this crappy DVD, and it for like bonus features, it just had a like click this link, and it like brought you to the still image, and it just advertised all these John Carpenter movies. It's like, visit more, why don't you check out more John Carpenter movies? And it's like, but John Carpenter didn't do Halloween 3.
He did write it
he
though, at
wrote it.
least. So there's a bit of a connection there.
Yeah, and I get it. Halloween is John Carpenter's baby, technically, but he didn't make Halloween 3, so I always thought that was
I'll
weird.
give it the benefit of the doubt a little bit more because I actually like Halloween 3.
I do too. Hey, I love Halloween 3. I liked it.
It's unironically one of my favorite Halloween movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's my second favorite Halloween movie for sure.
I'd say it's in my top 3 at least. I mean, it's probably number 3. It makes sense. Halloween 3 is my number 3 favorite Halloween movie. So.
Yeah, I think I did say my ranking was Halloween 1, and then Halloween 3 was my second favorite. I would revisit those Halloween movies, but there's a lot there that I don't want to revisit.
Yeah, for sure.
That was one of those horror franchises I would not rewatch. Like a lot of those movies. I would say out of the first 3 horror franchise marathons I've done these past 3 years, I would say Friday the 13th had the most movies I would want to revisit as opposed to the other franchises. I had other movies from those franchises I liked, but there are also movies from those franchises I desperately do not want to ever see again.
That makes sense. I think the reason I just haven't like watched through Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street as much is because I don't really hold the original movies of those franchises to the same degree that I do like Halloween.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, at least with Halloween, the first movie is my favorite of the franchise, whereas Friday the 13th and Nightmare, I can't really say that. Whereas the first movie is my favorite of both those franchises. Still though, Friday 6, Nightmare 3, banger movies. But I've already done episodes on them. If you want to hear more about that, go listen to them, audience.
Nightmare 3 I want to watch in particular because that movie was directed by the guy who went on to do the Blob remake and The Mask, so that was cool.
Yeah, Chuck Russell. So I think we're done talking about Planet 51. I really just I don't care to own this anymore. It was a fun revisit to be like, oh, I remember this era of animated movies where you could reference the Kids' Choice Awards, but now that I've seen it, I don't
have Macarena in it.
Oh yeah, and have the Macarena in it. Yeah, no, I have no reason to ever watch this again, so I'm getting rid of this DVD. Shocker.
It's not out of all the movies that I have starred, that all of the episodes I've been in so far. I guess if we're counting just like, but not counting the slime people episode that we did a few months ago.
Not counting slime people.
Yeah, because this is probably the first one of the ones we're doing that I would not actually buy on DVD.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So you would buy Cocaine Bear Brazil, the Sonic animated movie from 96, the 93 Mario, and you were on...
I already own 93 Mario and Brazil. I actually do own Cocaine Bear now, even though I haven't opened it yet.
Yeah. You were on the...
But Brazil and Mario are like the ones I would go watch. I would watch first, though.
Yeah. Well, you were also on the Q&A part of episode 100. Would you buy Thomas and the Magic Railroad?
I've not watched it yet.
Oh, dude. Oh, that's fine. No, whenever you get a chance.
It's one of those I will have to watch, though, because of the Nostalgia Critic episode.
Because of the Nostalgia Critic episode. It's also a staple of this podcast. You gotta.
Yeah, I will.
Good.
I feel like I kind of want to be in a right like setting, though, of like having a bunch of friends watch it, too.
Yeah, because I watched it. I remember during that week, I watched it with William and Lily, and William the whole time was turning towards me and Lily, the people who grew up with Thomas, and he didn't. He's just like, what the fuck is going on? And we're like, we can't help you there. Well, speaking of batshit insane movies that came out in 2000, why don't you take this one, Lazy? You seem very excited about this movie.
I am very excited to talk about this movie because this is a movie I've been fascinated by for a long time. I want to say that I actually wanted to do a video on this movie like years ago, but it was like after I spent like several months making a giant video about how much I hated the Last Airbender movie when I was younger. Like I would have been 18 at the time, so I was tired of making those types of videos, so I never made a giant video on this movie, even though I was planning on doing it at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But now that my channel has been kind of at least moderately successful, maybe I'll revive the idea someday. But for now, I decided to recommend another sci-fi movie, 2000's Battlefield Earth, starring John Travolta. This is considered by a lot of publications and critics to be one of, if not the worst movie of all time. And but before we talk about the movie, I actually did recommend a short before we watched the movie together.
That's
and
right.
a bunch of the other server people.
Yeah.
There was a short from 2000 as well, a South Park short called The Gauntlet that was parodying Gladiator as well as Battlefield Earth. And it basically it had like all the kids like being forced to like fight Russell Crowe at the arena, where he's like, "I'm a Spaniard by Craigie," and he's like, and they're about to die and everything like that, and then the Cyclos from Battlefield Earth just come down, and they're like, "It's John Travolta, the Church of Scientology, hooray!" and then like the Cyclos just go over to them and just give them personality tests.
That was really funny. It was a really
Yeah.
funny way to start off watching Battlefield Earth, for sure. Was the joke that they encompassed the best movie of 2000 and the worst movie of 2000? Was that the joke, or did they just randomly
I think they were just they were parodying two movies, I feel like, that came out that summer, because I think the MTV Movie Awards, because the short aired as part of that segment, essentially, the MTV Movie Awards that summer. Right. So I think those were just two of the talked about movies that summer, even though nobody saw the latter film, obviously. So.
But everybody talked about it. Yeah, that sounds right.
Everyone talked about it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's start things off there then. Is this the worst movie we've ever seen?
That is a very good question, because objectively speaking, from an objective lens, like if I'm judging this based off of like big blockbuster films that we've watched, this is definitely one of the worst ones. But I guess the thing is, though, we have watched a lot of like crappy like movies made by a bunch of nobodies, though.
Yeah.
On Real Night, we've watched like Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny,
Pure cinema, Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny.
So
yeah, honestly though, I think even looking at it from a studio perspective, like, okay, let's say big budget studio, then I don't know, I feel like I've seen way worse like big studio movies than this too. I don't know. I think 25 years later into the 21st century, I think there have been worse movies since Battlefield Earth. Because I
will say a lot of those bad movies are a lot less entertaining.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. At the time in 2000, could this be considered the worst movie ever? Sure. I'm sure at the time this was seen as the worst thing ever. And honestly, at the time, sure, we didn't like, this is what we had for bad. But I feel like, 25 years later, I think this movie's far more charming than a lot of movies I've seen. It's still not great.
Yeah,
it's still bad. It is a bad film. Like, from every angle, it is just abhorrent. Especially, I mean, first thing you see, the cinematography. Oh my God, it's just nothing but Dutch angles.
It's all entirely Dutch angles.
Yeah. And not even like as a joke, like, oh, it's all mostly Dutch angles. Like, no, there is no hyperbole. Practically every shot, I want to say. I think Nostalgia Critic in his review said 95%. I would go as far as to say, I think 98%.
98%.
Yeah, it's just Dutch angles. It's absurd.
It's like slanted. Even I was actually rewatching some of the review while I was waiting to record this episode, and like looking back, oh yeah, a lot of the clips are basically, they're not even consistently at the same angle though. When they're being slanted, they're just like left slanted, right slanted. Basically, It's like all over the place.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
Apparently, the reason why it's like this is because this film was directed by Roger Christian, who was a second unit director on Star Wars Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace before George Lucas was actually the one who recommended Travolta be the director behind this film, essentially. And that didn't work out very well. So. And so, do you want me to give you? Would you mind if I actually gave a little bit of background and history behind this movie before we start?
I did do some light research on the history, but yeah, there might be some things I'm not as knowledgeable in. So yes,
Yeah,
please go ahead.
because the history behind this movie is very very fascinating. So it was based on a book called Battlefield Earth, a saga of the year 3000.
Yes.
It was written by L. Ron Hubbard, who was famously known as the founder of Scientology. And just so we can avoid missiles being thrown at us while recording this episode by Scientologists, let's just say it. They seem like a lovely organization that certainly isn't scamming people scamming people out of thousands of dollars every year.
I've already signed up for Scientology.
Exactly.
This
movie's so good and made a Scientologist.
Yeah, this podcast is sponsored by Scientology.
Yeah, why isn't our podcast called Too Many Scientologists?
Because you can never have too many Scientologists.
Yeah, exactly. But so John Travolta, who was a Scientologist at the time, was a huge fan of the book and considered adapting the film to be a passion project. But it took several years to convince the studio to greenlight the film after he starred in a series of flops. Though, after Travolta's career was revitalized a decade later in the 1990s with the success of Pulp Fiction, which earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, the film was tossed to different studios from MGM to 20th Century Fox, before both dropped the film over concerns with the film's potentially high budget and its perceived connection to Scientology, which could negate Travolta's star power. And so, after some false starts, the project was later picked up by a financing company called Franchise Pictures, who specialized in greenlighting celebrity pet projects at a lower budget than other film studios. And it's also worth noting that this company was actually founded by a man named Eli Samaha, who was best known for owning a dry cleaner chain and a celebrity nightclub before getting into the film business.
Wow, dry cleaning business to film production. What other celebrity pet projects did this company produce besides Battlefield Earth?
A lot of Franchise Pictures, they are known for a lot of bad movies. A lot of it's actually worth noting that out of the top 100 worst reviewed movies of all time on Rotten Tomatoes, they take up at least 4 movies on the list. And also, and the number 1 worst reviewed movie on the site is a film that they also produced as well, Ballistic X versus Sever.
What? Ballistic X versus
Sever. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's a movie starring what's his name? Antonio Banderas and Lucy Liu.
Oh no, Lucy, my beloved, no! Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it's also one of the funniest things about this movie too is that before the film's release, Eli Samaha said that Battlefield Earth is going to make people in Hollywood take notice of me. I'm not going to be the laughingstock anymore. That certainly aged well.
Oh, they'll notice him, all right. Hey, avoid this guy like the plague.
Yeah. And so, also, another huge decision that I think really tanked the movie before filming even started was that Travolta was originally going to play the main human character, Johnny Goodboy Tyler, when the film was conceived in the 80s. By the time the film was off the ground in the late 90s, he felt that he was too old to play the part of, the main human character. So he decided to play the evil space alien leader Turl.
Honestly, best decision he could have made in that part. Yeah.
When we're talking entertainment value, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. He made the right decision in the long run.
Yeah.
You know what? Because you know what? I'll give credit because I feel like a lot of actors, especially The Rock, The Rock famously will not play bad guys because he doesn't want it to tarnish his image, or he wants to always be the cool guy. At least with John Travolta, I mean, he is an egomaniac and kind of a crazy person, but at least he's not like, no, I'm going to be the main character of this movie. He has enough self-awareness to be like, maybe I'm past my prime to be the leading man in this situation. I'll play the villain character. It's like, okay, you know what? Good for him in that scenario.
Yeah, at least he had some balls on that one.
Yeah, some cyclo balls.
Cyclops have balls, apparently. Cool.
Maybe.
Wait, why did I say that? But I was a little bit skeptical when I recommended this movie before we were going to record it or watch it together, essentially, because my friend Antic told me that I was going to be disappointed because this film was not as entertaining as he remembered. But I can now say that I am shocked and appalled by that statement that he said, because I can confirm now, after watching it with some of our friends, that it is a so bad it's good movie.
It was a lot funnier than I had remembered, because I watched it once before. I can't remember why I watched this movie like a couple years back. I think it was like 2020 I watched it. It might have just been like, oh, it's 2020. I'm not doing anything else with my time. Let me just watch Battlefield Earth. And I remember it being...
That's what COVID brain does to you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I remember it being bad. But I feel like rewatching it, it is funny bad. I think it has enough going for it where it is entertaining. It's not the most entertainingly so bad it's good film we've talked about on the podcast, but I think it is up there. I think it is a fun...
I think it's one of my go-to so bad it's good movies, personally.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it deserves to be celebrated as a entertainingly bad movie on the same level as something like The Room. Maybe not as much, but I think it's close to there.
I think so too. I think it is more funny than absolutely, miserable to get through. Because it is filmed at an angle. Everything's at an angle all the time. The acting is just absurd.
The dialogue and the acting.
Yeah. Even the editing is just bad, because like from time to time it'll either be in this really choppy slow-mo because it wasn't filmed in slow-mo, but then it'll have really good slow-mo, but for no reason. And of course the story is just absurd from... I mean, where do you even begin with how absurd the story is?
Yeah. Apparently the reason why, I think I just mentioned this, but the reason why all of the camera angles are all Dutch angles, though, apparently, is because director Roger Christian wanted the film to look like a comic book.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you were going to explain, but then you didn't. Okay, but now you've explained.
So okay. I think he doesn't realize that this movie was based on a book, not a comic book.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, that doesn't answer anything, because, well, one, it looks nothing like a comic book. Yes, you can have weird angles in a comic book, but I don't know. I feel like you could still have straight 90 fucking horizontal scenes in a comic book. You have weird angles when you need to, not all the time. Like fucking Tim Burton's Batman movie has some weird angles, like, especially, I brought this up in our episode on it, but like when you there's certain shots where you look up and the buildings look like they're falling down, but it's just the angle that they're at. Again, that's a stylistic choice, though, and it's not every fucking shot in the movie.
Exactly. And if you want like an actual movie that feels like it's trying to imitate the style of a comic book, there's already other films like that came out later that decade, like like something like Sin City or even Watchmen.
Yeah, and even later on, you get Spider-Verse doing that kind of stuff. And
absolutely.
But then also, yeah, this isn't based off a comic book, so why are we trying to emulate the style of a comic book? That seems entirely pointless.
Exactly. And another thing I've noticed, especially on this rewatch, is that all of the characters, including the villains and heroes, are always yelling all the time about something. Like they'll always just be like, raising their voice at like when they're finishing a sentence. Like, what if we took this one chance and fought? You know what I mean?
A beast, a monster, hurrah!
A beast, a demon, a monster, a beast. Ah!
While you were still learning to spell your
name. I was being trained to conquer galaxies
for over 50 cycles.
For 50 cycles, but then there's options for renewal. Ha 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 ha.
Oh my god,
that's the thing too. It's like all of the villains, like they're always laughing about something too. Yeah. It's like there's like even a point in the movie when when Travolta tells one of his men to reach for the gun that Barry Pepper stole, basically, and so he tries to reach for it, but then he gets shot. And Travolta just laughs basically. He's like, "I'll be damned." Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, yeah.
One of mine just got shot. Ha 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 ha.
You wouldn't laugh in that situation. You would just be
Yeah,
like, I
exactly.
mean, I like the idea that he just goes, well, I'll be damned. It just shows, it's a great, I love, see, I've brought this up before. I like when villains are just so evil that they won't care for people on their side, like their hired goons or their henchmen or even just coworkers at this point, because yeah, that's his coworker. He's just like, oh, he got shot. Like, yeah, but it's so stupid that he starts laughing evilly. Like,
Yeah, they're
dude.
always laughing about something all the time too. It's like,
Yeah.
I found a $20 bill on the ground. Ha 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 ha. It's like the definitive mustache twirling villain, of live action movie roles, basically.
Yeah, it's absurd, but it's funny when John Travolta does it because he's just hamming up every scene.
Yeah, and again, like I don't know. I think one of the reasons why this movie is so heavily reviled is because Travolta gives probably the worst performance out of the entire movie and probably of his entire career. Objectively speaking, it's entertaining as hell, but
Yeah,
when you're judging it as as an actual like acting role, he's horrible in the movie.
I guess.
Because because the
Yeah,
thing is too that John Travolta, he's most famous for playing kind of the ladies man in a lot of his most famous films. Like he kind of peaked when he was in Saturday Night Fever and also Grease. So that's kind of what most people go to see his movies for. And even something like Pulp Fiction, like he still kind of had a lot of those characteristics too. Like he was still a criminal in that movie, but he still like was taking out his boss's wife, for a good time that night and even danced with her and stuff like that. So he was still kind of like, kind of had that ladies man charm to him. So he
yeah.
doesn't have any of that in this movie.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I feel like the rest of the performances are either bad or really boring. So like him being this like out really weird performance just I don't know, it's my favorite of the movie, so I
Oh,
guess it
absolutely.
is
I mean,
technically
it's
bad
my
though.
favorite too. It's like
Yeah,
it's my favorite in terms of like I would compare it basically to Tommy Wiseau in The Room. Essentially, it's like he's giving the worst performance, but he's one of the reasons why the movie is so entertaining. There,
yeah, he is trying though too. Like John Travolta is one of those actors where he does do a lot of bad performances and a ton of bad movies, but I can't really say he never doesn't try. I feel like he is trying and he is putting in his all. And maybe he thinks he's doing a good job and, more power to him, but I don't know. I feel like there is something respectable about that even if the movie isn't very good.
yeah, it's like the line we were just referencing, the "spell your name" line, or the line delivery or performance in that one scene is just so horrible, so
Yeah.
bad. It's like no one told him like what kind of mood what mood is the character supposed to be in? Is he supposed to be drunk? Is he supposed to be intimidating?
Yeah.
They just didn't really think of it very much at all before filming it.
Yeah, and they just maybe he was. I mean, he was the producer slash he was the executive producer for this, so maybe
The full on producer actually.
full on producer. Okay, so yeah, so
Yeah.
he was basically calling the shots for everything, even when the director wasn't. So I'm sure him
Yeah.
just he was just he was either surrounded by a bunch of yes men or people wanted to tell him that he was doing a bad job, but nobody could because he was giving them their paychecks. So
Even even John Travolta's like agent was actually pretty against doing this movie from the beginning apparently, but Travolta basically threatened to fire him if he didn't allow this movie to happen. So
that's so funny. I did read somewhere that because the movie went kind of over budget and over time, that he had to cancel 2 roles so then he could finish this movie. Is it said anywhere what those 2 roles were? Because I'd love to know.
I don't know actually. That's a good question. I haven't read about that though, but I do know that Travolta was actually like when this film was being produced, like he actually sacrificed some of his usual, salary, his 20 million salary that he's usually paid like when he stars in one of these types of movies. That he still sacrificed at least like I want to say maybe 10 million of his usual salary, but he still but his pay still took up a good chunk of the budget though. That left like at least only like a minuscule left for important stuff like the special effects, for instance, that don't look very good in this movie.
Oh yeah, the CGI looks pretty bad. It's I guess it's fine for the time, but
it's fine in some parts, but like there's other parts when like the flying spaceship looks kind of like it looks pretty trashy, and
yeah.
I remember there's one point where like I know John Travolta's like training like Barry Pepper to fly this like spaceship through a VR thing, and like all the visuals, like I said, like hey, they look like Tron at least, but that was like 18 years ago.
Yeah, it just I'm nostalgic for that kind of CGI, but also I can definitely see when it doesn't look good. And yeah, this is just not, it just does not look good. It's it's pretty rough for the time. I mean,
there's even parts when like the lasers
it's rough nowadays.
Lasers that are being, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
but like I remember there's like parts when like the lasers like being shot at like at the human characters early on in the film, like they like there's like one part in particular when like when one of the lasers is being shot at one of the humans, and he just starts flying towards like the other wall behind him basically, and it looks so absurd and hilarious. Like, and it's also worth noting that that entire scene too, where like all the lasers are being shot at them and they're trying to escape and everything, like they didn't sync any of the sound to it. Like there's no sound effects or anything like that, so all you hear is all this like dramatic music, and there's like it sounds like nothing's being shot at them when they're supposed to be a really suspenseful scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to like look at trying to see if I can find some movies that the movies that John Travolta would have canceled to be in Battlefield Earth for. And
it would have been funny if it was I wonder if it was gonna be something like really interesting though.
That's what I'm looking at. I mean, this is an AI answer on Google, so take this with a grain of salt. But it says John Travolta turned down the lead roles in the following movies to star in Battlefield Earth: Days of Heaven, 1978; American Gigolo, 1980; An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982; and Chicago, 2002. So,
well, those earlier ones would have been before Battlefield Earth started filming.
Yeah,
so.
that's why I'm like thinking.
I think
like,
Chicago, I can.
Yeah.
Although Chicago came out 2002, I want to say.
Chicago seems likely, but then I'm thinking, I don't know, I guess maybe when he was trying to get the, although that doesn't make sense because the book came out in what, 1980?
1982.
Right. And so Days of Heaven was 1978, American Gigolo was 1980, Officer and Gentleman was 82. Yeah, so it's probably
doesn't
not
seem
true.
very accurate.
No, I mean, like I said, it's an AI answer, so take it with a grain of salt.
Another one of the most infamous parts of this movie is also just the color grading in general. Like it goes from piss yellow during the day scenes, and then it just turns into like just like this really boring and abhorrent looking blue.
Yeah.
Like filter over it. Like like it looks like miserable almost.
Yeah, the color grading, I mean, it's a wide variety of colors. Like, yeah,
it's a very colorful looking movie.
Yeah, real rainbow.
I guess that goes back to the whole like comic book movie angle that the director wanted for the movie.
Yeah, almost like kind of like Suspiria, just the different colors just because it looks cool. But no, Argento knew how to color a movie and make it look interesting, whereas this is just badly colored. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I actually watched a John Travolta movie last night that had a lot of interesting colors in it called Blowout.
Blowout, yes, I saw you watch that. Oh, dude, I love Blowout. I love that movie. It's so good. So good.
The reason I actually watched it was kind of just to prepare for this episode because
okay.
I was told by my friend Antic that he said that John Travolta's best performance was actually in Blowout. So I decided to watch that movie, before doing this episode just to bring it up. But I looked into Blowout a little bit. Apparently, Tarantino is obsessed with that movie.
Like, I mean, yeah, it's
there was a whole video about him like doing a tour of his like the video store he used to work at, Video Archive.
Okay.
And he showcased like 3 movies at the store that he would bring to a desert island. One of them was Taxi Driver. The other one was, I forgot the name of the other one, but I know one of them. The first one he brought up was Blowout, though, and he was saying himself that is Brian De Palma's best movie, the best director of our generation, and it's John Travolta's best performance, and he's really good in the movie too, so it really helps out.
You know what? I probably agree with Tarantino. I mean, of the De Palma movies I've seen, is probably my favorite of his, because De Palma was this weird director where like I watched a couple of his movies years ago and I didn't like them. Like I'm not a fan of Carrie. And there's this other really weird movie he made called I want to say it was called Sisters. I think that's what it was called. It was fucking Lois Lane. Who was Lois Lane in the original Superman from 1978? It was fucking what was her name? Fuck. Oh, this is really embarrassing.
Lois Lane, original actress.
Yes.
Margot Kidder?
No, it is Margot Kidder. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Margot Kidder, because she was Lois Lane in the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman movie. That was my point. Because yeah, Margot Kidder, she played twins in this movie. It was like a psychological thriller, and Doc Hopper from the Muppet movies in it actually too. It wasn't very good though. I didn't like it. And then I watched Scarface earlier this year. I watched it for the podcast, and I liked it. I did like it, but I thought it was a little too weird. Whereas then, anyway, my point is, then I got to Blowout, and I was floored by how much I loved Blowout. It was really good. So yeah, I agree with Tarantino. I think Blowout is De Palma's best movie too. I mean, I haven't seen everything from De Palma, but from what I've seen, Blowout is my favorite.
But I think it does prove that just because Travolta was in a couple of really good movies doesn't mean that he probably has very good taste in films overall. Like, if he's proud of something like this, which he has actually said in the record, like he said that despite the movie's like horrible reputation, he actually does not regret taking part in this film.
You know what? That's wholesome. It's a terrible movie, but he's proud of his work for it. You know, good for Travolta, I guess. If he's proud of it, good for him. But oh boy, this would be a hard movie to kind of be proud of, quote unquote. Yeah, defend as anything that great. So you know what? More power to him as far as I'm concerned.
The entire alien race of Cyclos are so stupid in this movie.
Yeah.
That every single strategy that they come up with, or every single thought they have, is like something that you would think is like in a comedy movie or a satire, essentially. There's because like they think because like there's like this whole subplot in the movie about how like they're trying to get the humans, because the humans are like, because the Cyclos have taken over the entire human race for like 1,000 years, because the year is 3,000, and so they're trying to convince the human race to basically like mine the entire Earth for gold. And so they're trying to do all these things to persuade them, essentially, like give them treats or whatever, or basically just because they just want the gold, essentially. But
yeah,
they also think that because they catch on a monitor somewhere that because the humans are so starving and they haven't eaten anything for days, that they eat the first thing that's right in front of them, and it's a live rat. And so one of them just tries to eat the rat, and so like Forrest Whitaker is like who's one of the Cyclos in the movie, just points at the camera. It's like, that's their favorite food.
It's so stupid. Yeah. So a couple of things. So this movie does the whole A Quiet Place thing, where it's just like, oh yeah, humanity's dying off because these creatures have taken over the planet, and you're like, why? And it's never really explained. Like, I think the most this movie has is John Travolta goes, yeah, you humans 1,000 years ago only put up a measly 9-minute fight. It's like, what do you mean? Like, and then yeah, every decision these Cyclos make in the movie makes you question how they took over and caused 1,000 years where humanity devolved into Planet of the Apes-esque human characters, which, so yeah, the movie treats them like Planet of the Apes, where they're kind of dressed in these raggedy clothes and they're running around and they're not the dominant species anymore. But they still talk, and they still, they still speak English. They're still humans after all. But then there's other scenes where they're like kind of making monkey noises. It's just like, okay, again, this isn't Planet of the Apes. You've established that humans are exactly the same as they were 1,000 years ago. They're just, not the dominant species anymore. It's really weird world building, I must say.
It would have made more sense if it was maybe like a few years since they took over, but not like
Sure.
1,000 years.
Yeah, 1,000 years seems a bit much. Also, so yeah, the point is they want them to mine for gold. I actually learned something new by this. Apparently, there's not that much Earth on gold. I mean, yes, quantifiably, there's a lot of gold on Earth because we still have gold to this day and we're still discovering it. But apparently, there's asteroids out there in the universe that have far more amounts of gold on them than there are on Earth, you know? So, like, if they want to go mining for gold, why not mine those huge asteroids out there that have far more gold on them than coming to our puny little planet, you know?
Exactly.
I thought that was an interesting
Maybe
factoid.
they just want all of the gold or something, but I don't know. There's still more valuable places you could be looking. Yeah.
Yeah, but also, yeah, and then again, the whole it's been 1,000 years. You don't know anything about humanity where you think, oh, they like to eat rats.
There's even one of my favorite parts of the movie is when Barry Pepper is being strapped to a chair. I think this was after like he was being put in front of a machine that would give him like all this cyclo information basically, and Turl or John Travolta is like so angry when he won't eat the rat and right that he's like carrying right in front of him because he's so confused like why he's not eating it that he's like, do you want lunch?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's another thing. He puts Barry Pepper in the chair and then just fucking vomits, like has the machine vomit all this information to him because he thinks that'll make him communicate with Barry Pepper more. This is the first time they've decided
that'll make him a more sufficient slave, essentially. That'll basically do his job better.
Yeah, this is the first time a cyclo has done this in 1,000 years, and then it ultimately leads to their downfall because then they just let them go willy-nilly like, oh, you can learn anything on this computer. And it's like, okay.
The fly our spaceships for us, basically.
Yeah, basically. Like, hello? Like, these are really dumb decisions. Like, yeah, like you said, you would find these kind of motivations in a parody, in a comedy film. But this movie's not trying to be funny. It is taking itself very seriously.
And that's what makes it so funny.
Oh yeah, no, it's beneficial to us who find so much enjoyment in this movie, but for normal people going to the movie theaters in 2000 that are just like, oh, let's go see an action sci-fi movie, yeah, they're gonna be disappointed. You know, they don't have they're not irony brained like we are in the year 2025, where we get enjoyment out of something like this.
There's even like a point in the movie where like I think like one of the humans is like trying to jump off a cliff basically to escape from the cyclos, and like and like there's a line from like Forrest Whitaker who's like, oh, the humans, can they fly right now or something like that?
Yeah.
And I think most advanced species, especially one that has taken over the earth for over 1,000 years, would know that the only things that can fly are things that have wings on them, right?
Yeah, it's so stupid. Like, we're the dominant species currently. We're at the top of the food chain. We know things about animals that are below us on the food chain, you know? We don't know
exactly
everything, but we know enough. And, you know, I'm sure there are people out there who don't know things about animals. Like, yeah, of course. But there's not a single human expert, quote unquote, in this fucking amongst these cyclos. Like, there's no like, you know, at least in Lilo and Stitch, there's Pleakley, who's just like, oh, I'm an expert on this, and it's more played so as a joke, but at least he's like putting in the effort to research, you know, creatures on Earth, you know. Whereas like here, there's not a character to just be like, oh, humans are actually this, and this. Like they're all just kind of, you know, they just put humanity down as like these idiots, and like of course they do the whole like, oh, dogs were the dominant species at some point joke. It's like, that is the extent.
That dumb.
Yeah, the script is that dumb where it's making jokes that you would see in literally any other piece of sci-fi. I'm pretty sure they would have made that joke in Planet 51 if they had to, you know.
Exactly. They also give him like in that entire like scene where like Barry Pepper's like strapped to that chair and learning all this like cyclo information. It basically gives them the advantage of like knowing where all of this like cyclo like equipment and like weapons are that he and his friends can just conveniently open like right
Yeah.
afterwards.
Oh yeah, the
Like
fucking
that's a level of incompetency that the aliens are at.
yeah, the fucking information dumping that happens is so convenient in this. It's laughable. It really is. Is this stuff that was in the original book?
I wonder. I was trying to read the book recently, actually, just to prepare for this episode, but I was more listening to it from an audio book. But I think it starts off just so terribly that I can't even get through it, to be honest.
Yeah, because I know it's not like it has nothing to do with Scientology. It's just called the
Yeah.
Scientology movie because it was written by L. Ron Hubbard and it starred John Travolta. But yeah, it has nothing to do with Scientology. But then it's like, okay, what is the grander point of this movie? Like, first of all, Battlefield Earth is such a generic title that it sounds like one of those, I don't know, straight to voodoo fucking asylum sci-fi movies that nobody cares about, you know?
Yeah. It's not a very creative title, and
No.
nor is the premise for it either.
Yeah,
like I think honestly, I think a better version of the aliens taking over human society movie that I can think of is Fantastic Planet. Actually,
ooh, yeah.
that's a movie where basically an entire human race is enslaved by these giant blue aliens, but it's a much better metaphor because humans are basically like insects to these giant blue creatures that
Yeah, they're viewed as
they're
pets.
basically exactly how we treat insects beneath us.
Yeah, but they're also viewed as pets at some point too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, dude,
it's
it's been
true.
a while since I've seen Fantastic Planet. I remember really liking it.
It's a really interesting movie, and
Yeah.
and when the humans do actually, I guess a small spoiler, but I guess when the humans do actually rise above the aliens in that movie, it's not because the aliens are completely incompetent idiots. It's because they actually do something smart at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I gotta rewatch Fantastic Planet. Wow.
Yeah, and one of the thing is though, the humans they are so lucky in this movie because not only are the aliens so incompetent, but the plot itself and the story is so illogical that the most contrived and convenient things are so are just so easily accessible. Like the entire climax of the movie, where like all the humans are like trying to fight against the aliens. They go into one of the abandoned military bases, and all of the jets that are there are just working just fine despite not being operated in 1,000 years.
Yeah. One, fuel, degrades over time. So all that gas that's in the jet planes is no good. After 1,000 years, I'm sure it's absolutely no good, but whatever.
And also, how are the humans able to defeat them with those exact jets if like human society 1,000 years ago couldn't defeat them?
Yeah.
What was the difference this time?
The-
Maybe it'd make more sense if they stole some of the cyclo spaceships or jets or whatever. But no, it's their own human vehicles.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not tense, like at least it's something like Independence Day where it's like, oh shit, these fucking aliens have really got us pinned to the wall, and like when they actually defeat them, it's actually kind of a miracle, and it's through human ingenuity. And then in the sequel, the sequel where they actually do use alien technology, but then the aliens didn't didn't evolve their technology at all, and so then they defeat them easily. Fuck Independence Day 2. So you know what? At least Independence Day 2 had the humans use the technology against the aliens. They didn't do that very well, the movie, but I would also say the movie's way worse than Battlefield Earth, but at least there's that.
Yeah. And even the human characters make such incompetent decisions at times. There's one scene where basically like where Barry Pepper and all of his slave friends are being put to work, and then like he eventually like overpowers Turl and steals one of their guns essentially, and he has that whole opportunity to kill Turl so he and his other human friends have some kind of victory. But no, he decides throughout all that entire opportunity that he had, he just wastes and like does nothing. And he eventually like his love interest, who is barely in the movie at all and has like zero character, is like he finds out is like one of is basically has a gun up to her head basically and is gonna die if like he does something about it, or he does something to Turl, and he basically just forfeits. And he had like literally an entire minute or two before that, and he did nothing.
Yeah, I get what the movie's trying to be, or is trying to do in that scene where he's just like, oh, well, he's trying to be the better character, and it's trying to show he has like wits where he's just like, I'm not going to kill the villain, I'm going to use him to my advantage. But the movie explains that very poorly, and yeah, as you said, immediately the next scene, a character dies, and so it probably would have been beneficial for him to kill Turl, but plot reasons.
And it's all shown in like really crappy slow motion where he's like, no. Some of the slow motion in this movie is hilarious though.
It's so funny.
Like the intro where like he finds out his dad died, which never even plays into the rest of the movie either. Like you said, like his love interest, like your father was taken by the aliens, and he's like, no. And it's like this horrible slow motion.
Yeah, exactly. You could cut that out. The movie does not change at all. The father plays no part in the movie. Not even the death of the father. Like, there's not a moment where he's just like, I'm doing this for my father. It's like, no, there's none of that. You could have cut that out entirely from the movie. It wouldn't have mattered.
There's also this one subplot that was kind of hinted at earlier on in the movie as well, that like after the whole interrogation scene between the Cyclos, where John Travolta, who's like the leader of this whole like, sort of alien race that, he's basically at a second in command to this other bigger alien guy with an even worse wig and costume, that he's like being told like that he has to stay on this planet, and he doesn't. He wants a promotion. I think he doesn't get the promotion, and like that giant alien says, "We decided to keep you here for another 50 cycles, with endless options for renewal. With endless options for renewal."
Yeah,
and I think the part because he's repeating that same line, "endless options for renewal," like 3 times he repeats it. Or twice he repeats it, or 3 times he repeats it.
Yeah, I don't think he repeats it himself. I think it is just, it's supposed to represent that it's
supposed to be in Travolta's head, but it's not really presented well.
No, not at all. Yeah, I guess that subplot doesn't really go anywhere either. Yeah, where it's just like, oh, you're just here, and then he's just there for the rest of the movie. It's like, okay, you could have just cut that out.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you could just cut that out.
Yeah, exactly. There's also that line like said like afterwards that like, I think like his boss basically says something along the lines of like he was in some kind of in some kind of relationship with one of the other Cyclos or something.
Yeah, the senator's daughter
again.
Yeah,
the senator's daughter. Like, where did that come from?
If I had even an inkling that was the senator's daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another great funny part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like again like it's like screenwriting 101. These are things you're supposed to present and have some kind of thread to, and have some kind of resolution for.
Yeah,
and they don't even do that here.
Yeah, well, it's like Roger Ebert brought this up in his review about most he was making the point towards the cinematography, how like the director puts in these Dutch angles because he's seen it done in other movies, but he doesn't understand why those other movies do it.
That is a great point.
It's a very good point. And I think it applies to other things throughout the movie than just the Dutch angles. Like, yeah, the writing, the character motivations, all of these things, it feels like the movie has them, but the director and the filmmakers at large in general don't understand why you would have to have these things. They're just like, well, other movies have these things. It's like, yes, but there's a point to them usually.
Yeah, it's why I brought up The Room earlier, because I think it feels like the sci-fi big budget Hollywood studio equivalent of something like The Room, in my opinion.
Yeah, The Room, a movie made where Tommy Wiseau was just making it because he saw how other like American movies made their movies. He's like, well, we got to have this, we got to have that, we got to have this, but there's no reason for having this and that and this. Like, there needs to be reasons why. Yeah, the movies need to be coherent in order to be enjoyed. You can't just throw this stuff in there willy-nilly and have no reason for them.
I think that if you did the exact opposite of everything that this film attempted, then I think you would actually have a pretty well-acted, well-written, and well-crafted film in the end. Like, I think what Roger Christian and John Travolta should have done is take advice from that one episode of Seinfeld called The Opposite. where George Costanza realizes that life isn't going so well for him, so he decides to do the opposite of everything that he usually does.
And everything works out for him. Yeah.
And then life starts going pretty well for him.
That's such a classic episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that's what they both, Roger Christian and John Travolta, should have done the exact opposite of everything that they did in this movie. Like, what's the opposite of Dutch angles?
Straight line.
Straight normal camera angles.
Normal.
What's the opposite of overacting?
Subtle
acting. Exactly.
What's the opposite of sci-fi? What is the opposite of sci-fi?
Well, I think you can still make a good sci-fi movie. Good writing and stuff like that.
What's the opposite of bad writing? Good writing.
Good writing. Exactly.
Oh, Drake and IT guy gif. Oh.
Yeah, the reviews for this movie at the time were like hilarious to look back on now, especially.
Yeah.
Want me to read some of the quotes for the reviews?
The Roger Ebert one specifically, or just in general?
Oh, so some of the other headlines for the movie too.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
A million monkeys with a million crayons would be hard pressed in a million years to create anything as cretinous. Cretinous? Am I pronouncing that right?
Cretinous
as Battlefield Earth.
Listen, if you're gonna insult me, do it properly. Second of all.
There's also, and maybe a bit early to make such judgments, but Battlefield Earth may well turn out to be the worst movie of the century. And this reviewer also called it Plan 9 from Outer Space for a new generation.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair. The worst of the 21st century? No, come on, that's way too early to tell.
Yeah,
I mean, at the time,
I will say
sure.
This isn't even my least favorite movie of the 2000s.
No, definitely not.
That's because I love this movie for being so hilariously bad, but
Yeah. Again, I think this is, people watched it at the time and thought it was the worst thing ever. And sure, at the time, maybe it was. I entirely believe that. But like, is it the worst now? No, not even. I think we've discovered a worse kind of bad than the kind of bad something like The Room or Battlefield Earth is,
In terms of like not even being enjoyable bad.
Yeah, exactly. Because those movies they're bad, but they're funny. They're entertaining. Exactly. You're gonna have a good time watching them, unless you hate fun. I don't know.
Like, I'd still rather watch this movie than something like The Last Airbender, probably because because Last Airbenders, it's an adaptation of a horrible adaptation of something that I generally hold dear, and The
Last Airbender,
as funny as this.
Yeah, The Last Airbender is bad because it's not fun. It is taking something that was once really, really good and just not understanding how it ended up working. And also just on its own, it's just a painfully boring movie. So you get the worst of everything and nobody wins,
Exactly.
So,
and I will give the benefit of the doubt where like, I do feel like as if John Travolta genuinely wanted to make this movie, where I feel like no one who made the Last Airbender movie actually wanted to make it.
Yeah. Again, nobody won in that situation.
Exactly.
So, but you know what? Even though I'm sure these are very harsh critiques for the movie. I mean, they're funny though. You get a million monkeys and a million crayons. That's funny. So, but please continue.
Everything about Battlefield Earth sucks. Everything. The over-the-top music, the unbelievable sets, the terrible dialogue, the hammy acting, the lousy special effects, the beginning, the middle, and especially the end. Nice. And I think there was one reviewer who called it. Let me pull it up real quick. It's a great quote. But it was Jon Stewart who mocked the film on The Daily Show, who described it as a cross between Star Wars and The Smell of Ass.
Ooh, harsh.
Yeah, there's even a parody poster for this movie that was like quoting all the bad reviews too.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like, what was he thinking? The showgirls of sci-fi shoot-'em-ups.
Whoa!
Hopelessly directed, inscrutable, hypnotically foolhardy. 0 stars. Earth is terrible.
Wow. I'm still on
uploaded sci-fi monstrosity.
I'm still on the showgirls of sci-fi movies. Wow. I guess so.
Yeah. Because there really was nothing like this at the time, I don't think, too.
I guess not.
It was kind of like the anti-Star Wars, basically.
Yeah.
Which Travolta claimed, what's funny, before, Travolta actually described this movie before it came out as Star Wars, but better.
I mean, I can think of a bunch of Star Wars movies I wouldn't watch over this. Like, I feel like I'd watch this over a bunch of Star Wars stuff. So
That's true.
but I mean, not the good Star Wars stuff. I'll say that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. This was like kind of the anti-Star Wars, as they mentioned, though, because like
Yeah.
Star Wars became a huge phenomenon. It changed the film industry.
Yeah.
This didn't change the film industry,
No.
and this also became a laughingstock for
Yeah.
decades.
Oh yeah. In that regards, yes. At the time, this is absolutely the anti-Star Wars.
Yeah. And the way that Eli Samaha, who was the producer and founder of franchise, after this film came out, he described he responded to the critical response by saying, "The critics were waiting for us to chop our heads off. Everybody hated Scientology for some reason. I didn't know people were so prejudiced."
For some reason.
even though we mentioned before that this movie has and even Ebert himself said this movie has no connection to Scientology.
Yeah.
And no system of thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just called the Scientology sci-fi movie as a joke because because it has connections to L. Ron Hubbard and John Travolta. That's literally it for connections to Scientology. But also, Scientology is a massive joke, as is this movie. So of course, people are going to call it the Scientology movie.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of great reviews for this movie over the years. I think we'd obviously go to the Nostalgia Critic, but also
Yeah.
I also really like the Half in the Bag episode by Red Letter Media on this movie. That's
I didn't watch
pretty
that.
classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also recorded their reaction to the movie, had the classic Rich Evans laugh.
Oh, good. Oh, that laugh is music to my ears.
Yeah.
So I got to watch this now.
But yeah, my favorite review of this movie to this day is still the one by Roger Ebert, who
I can agree
perfectly
to that.
encapsulated everything wrong with this movie.
Yeah.
He made a lot of great points.
Yeah. See, I've always been, I'll be honest, I've been a little weird with Roger Ebert over the years in terms of whether I like him as a critic or not. I mean, I think I do respect him because he is one of the fathers of modern film criticism. I think that's been said about him. And I do respect him. I just feel like there have been times when I've read some reviews from him where I'm just like, dude, what are you saying? Like, and this is obviously very personal. Like, I don't know if I've ever showed you his Great Muppet Caper review.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, that one is so bad. It is so bad. And I'm not just saying that because Great Muppet Caper is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, completely separate from it being my favorite movie of all time, it is just such a really weird review for the movie. I won't go into it, but it's just really weird. But this review for Battlefield Earth, his review, yes, this review, reading it, I'm like, okay, I see why this guy is seen as one of the greatest film critics of all time, because he nails it. He does it entertainingly, and he does so with leaving you with really interesting perspectives on the film. Like I said, his burn towards the director where he says like, oh, the director is using the Dutch angles because he's seen it used in other movies, but he doesn't understand why it's been used. It's like, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and it also brings up like the character, like the alien race being so advanced, and yet they look like complete idiots. So.
Yeah, they look like they smell bad. They can't trim their hair or trim their nails. Yeah, these are all really good points. They're good points against the movie. They're also really funny. Like, this is entertaining to read. It's a great read. Yeah.
The Cyclos can fly between galaxies, but look at their nails. Their civilization has mastered the hyperdrive, but not the manicure.
That's funny, but also really good. A really good point.
The last paragraph of the review, though, it has to be my favorite, though. Would you mind if I read it?
Please, go ahead.
Some movies run off the rails. This one is like the train crash in The Fugitive. I watched it in mounting gloom, realizing I was witnessing something historic. A film that for decades to come will be the punchline of jokes about bad movies. There is a moment when the Cyclo's entire planet is blown to smithereens, without the slightest impact on any member of the audience. If the film had been destroyed in a similar cataclysm, there might have been a standing ovation.
That goes hard. It really does.
Yeah. Ebert has written a lot of great reviews of bad movies. The Last Airbender one is also one of my favorites from him. But yeah, I know there's parts of like, you know, people that like, there's things to criticize Ebert for at times, like his takes on video games not being art, sure.
Yeah, that's pretty notorious.
But when Ebert was right, he got it fucking right, man.
Sure.
That's why I still respect him as a critic.
I can agree to that. Yeah. I'm not saying that as like, oh, everything he says is wrong. It's like, no, absolutely not. There's always going to be critics and, even YouTube critics that I'm going to disagree with from time to time. There are times I disagree with James. Okay. Like, of course I'm going to disagree with James, but that doesn't take away from when they actually do make great points. And yeah, Ebert, he totally nails Battlefield Earth. I loved reading his review of it. It was great.
It was also so after this movie was released, the studio behind it, I guess quote unquote studio, since they're not really a film studio, Franchise Pictures, they were later sued by its investors by overstating the film's budget alongside other productions that were released under them. The investor Entertainment sued producer Franchise for fraud, and Franchise claimed the budget was $75 million instead of the actual budget of $44 million. Franchise was ordered by the court to pay Entertainment $121.7 million in damages and went bankrupt as a result.
I mean, yeah, of course. Still, though, 44 and 75 million, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Remember when movies
the
used to cost that much?
The original budget was projected to be like 100 million, but they in order to like save money for the movie, they tried filming in like Canadian locations and also spending way less money on special effects and anything that would actually make the movie good.
Yeah. I mean, the makeup, it's not great makeup, but I don't know, it looks consistent,
Yeah. I mean, they're the things they wear though. They look like they just like scrapped a bunch of furniture together.
Yeah. No, that's not good, but like at least they look like aliens. I mean, not great looking aliens, but aliens nonetheless.
Yeah, it's like but the costumes they do. Ebert made a good point in his review too when he said their costumes look like they were purchased from the Goodwill store on the planet Tatooine.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, it's also not a good thing when like you can just recreate the alien look in the Nostalgia Critic review when you have Spoonie dressed as Turl. I mean, it's great. Yeah. I love Spoonie dressed as Turl. It's hilarious, but also, come on.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of funny entertainment to be had here.
Oh yeah. Movie, yeah. I will absolutely say this is nowhere near the worst movie I've talked about on the podcast. It's nowhere near, not even close to being the worst movie I've ever seen in general.
What would you say is the worst big budget studio movie you've seen?
Oh man.
Because I do know there's one of those that I actually hate a lot more from the 2000s, but
oh yeah, what's that?
Well, it's another Nostalgia Critic review. I watched Son of the Mask last year and it was horrible.
Oh. Yeah, that's one I've never seen. Yeah, that one's weird. I don't think I've ever technically watched it. I've only watched it through the Nostalgia Critic review, so I can't really say much on it. Yeah, that would probably be worse. But like, oh man, you know what? Let me go to Letterboxd. Let me sort films, because usually when you sort films by your lowest rated, it's not really your lowest rated. It's sorted by like popularity of the film.
Yeah.
So like when I go to half stars, and I have the half stars at the top here, but like it's sorted by like the most popular. So like the most popular half star review I have is Don't Look Up, which yeah, I don't like that movie. I hate it even. Well, that is a big budget because it's Netflix, right?
Yeah. The lowest rated half star I have is Suicide Squad, but like I don't know if that's like the worst I've seen anymore.
No, yeah, because like I'm looking at this, so like yeah, Don't Look Up, then Cruella, then Free Guy, then Ready Player One, Madam Web, Beauty and the Beast 2017, Maleficent, Justice League, Lion King 2019, Aladdin 2019, Crimes of Grindelwald, Sausage Party, The Nun, Secret of Dumbledore, The Visit, The Lorax. Okay, yeah, these are starting to go back down in popularity, but
the thing is, Battlefield Earth is still more entertaining than any of those.
Yeah, honestly, I would watch out of all of those. Yes, I would not watch any of these again. Yeah, I guess maybe Justice League might be the worst, but I don't know. Like I don't know. That's the thing with like recently. I feel like it's kind of hard for me to kind of decide what my least favorite movie is, because I feel like I've seen so much crap that it kind of just it kind of just combines in my mind, and it's kind of hard for me to really decipher which one I would hate more.
They kind of mesh together.
Yeah, mesh together.
Mesh together.
Yeah, it's really hard to say what my least favorite movie of all time is now. I feel like maybe a couple years ago I would have been able to tell, but now that I've like gone out of my way to kind of search for a lot more bad movies, it's really hard for me to decipher. I can tell you there are things bad movies do that I can name, or like, tropes or practices in modern filmmaking I don't like, but I don't think I could name you like a specific example of like the worst of the worst for me. I don't know. It's a little hard for me to kind of come to a conclusion on, but it is definitely not Battlefield Earth. I can say that for sure.
Yeah. There's also a lot of other. I think we forgot to mention some of the other really entertaining parts of this movie later on.
Please.
You remember the part when, remember the part when like the aliens are like talking to each other, like John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker are like bantering basically, and then it's revealed that like Travolta basically just like killed the bartender that he was talking to earlier. Like he takes off his head out of a box. Basically, is this our friendly bartender?
Our friendly bartender. It's just like.
And to get back at Forrest Whitaker or something, he shoots his hand, and then there's like no reaction.
Look at Forrest Whitaker, yeah, without a hand, he just looks at his hand. He
just looks at it. Oh.
So funny. Oh, so funny.
So many funny moments in this movie.
Oh god, that was great. Yeah, and then they blow off Turl's arm too. And he's just like, it's off now.
And there's like the amount of curtain wipes in this movie too. That's another thing we forgot to mention.
Yeah, the curtain wipes.
It's like the curtain wipes, like at least in Star Wars, they kind of make sense though, because like it kind of makes sense because like there's so many doors and like the spaceships in Star Wars that kind of open like how the curtain wipes do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but they also have a wide variety of different kinds of wipes in Star Wars. It's not just the one like opening up like Goatsy. Like it's more so there's more so varied. Like it'll come in from the corner, it'll come in from a different corner. It'll just like kind of slide to the right. I don't remember which movie has it, but there's one really interesting wipe where it's like 6 cubes form and they kind of like shrink and then it's into the next scene. It's kind of hard to explain, but it does like this like 6 different corners of the scene kind of like fade out and it's onto the next scene. It's a really weird wipe, but I always remember it. I can't remember which one. It was definitely a prequel. Because of course it was a prequel, but still. But yeah, that's the thing. Like Star Wars is known for its interesting wipes, whereas this just had the curtain Goatsy, where it was just kind of like opening up and then just opening it up, and it just did that until the very end when it just like when it does the opposite and it kind of like closes,
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I that was hilarious though. Is that how does the movie end? Another curtain wipe, like when Travolta's like stuck in that cage by himself, and like Forrest Whitaker is like, because he has all that gold from like Fort Knox.
Yeah.
That apparently like the aliens who took over the Earth for 1,000 years never bothered to look inside Fort Knox for all of that beautiful gold that they're looking for.
The fact that that's not the biggest problem with the movie is astounding because it's like, how?
Yeah.
And then it ends with Forrest Whitaker going being like, well, at least you got your gold. Like, oh, is that what the movie was building up to? The irony that he's surrounded by his gold?
I mean, yeah, again, like the plot is so predictable though. Like you already know that the humans are gonna win.
Yeah.
The Barry Pepper's gonna get back with his love interest that has 0 personality.
Yeah, the humans win not because through admiration or through actually through it actually being like tense for them. Like there's no tension. Yeah, they just win because, well, they're the good guys and they're facing off against the bad guys. And in movies, traditionally, the good guys win.
Yeah, if they didn't win because they're smart, it's because the aliens are dumb.
Yeah. I was going to say because plot, but no, it is literally because the aliens are so fucking stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't surprise me, though, that this was the movie that bombed so horribly that it killed John Travolta's career.
Yeah, has he ever been in anything like
I
really
think he was in
good?
some stuff. He was in Hairspray after that, I think, but like he wasn't in
Yeah,
anything big after this though, in terms of like a main starring role. I don't think.
I guess not. Because
I guess Bolt, but like that was like
yeah,
an animated voice role though.
yeah. Because he's still been in movies, but yeah, I guess he's not seen as
He was in Gotti.
yeah, yeah. Gotti, the Fanatic, like he had a bit of a renaissance a couple years back with So Bad It's Good movies again. But yeah, no, I don't. I guess he hasn't been in anything big since then, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he has been in things, but he hasn't been like in big things. Now that I think about it, yeah, I'm trying to
You
think
know
of like trying to think. I really can't think of anything. I can't think of anything exceptional he's been in the last 25 years.
the most exceptional thing he was in is that one I think it's like that one AT&T commercial where he's dressing up as Santa Claus and doing the staying alive thing again.
Oh yeah, I mean,
That's the best thing he did in 15 years.
I thought it was funny. I mean, I've never
Yeah,
seen
it's
Staying
cute.
Alive. It's cute, but yeah, no, I guess that
Or
is
it's Saturday Night Fever, yeah.
no, yeah, it's Saturday Night Fever. Is Staying Alive even a movie of his?
It actually is a sequel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I've never seen Saturday Night Fever. But I got the joke. Like it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
he's because it's so ingrained in pop culture. Um,
I get it because of Airplane, mostly.
oh yeah, oh god, yeah, that's true. That scene is probably going to be better than Saturday Night Fever. I've never seen it, but I'm probably only ever going to be thinking like, oh, it's just like the airplane scene because I fucking love that airplane scene so much.
Yeah. The movie was such a huge flop that it actually that the thousands of theaters were already begging to get rid of it on its third and fourth weekend alone. After it had a horrible opening weekend that was only a fraction of its opening or its production budget, and its second weekend took a massive drop off
Oh man,
that was like already in less than 1,000 theaters by its fifth weekend. It actually reminds me of another Warner Brothers box office flop that came out just a few months ago.
which one? There
Joker
have been
Folie à Deux.
Oh, okay, yeah. There have been so many box office bombs recently. It's kind of hard to tell which one is the worst one because I feel like every other week it's just like, oh, this is the lowest opening for a superhero movie. It's like, really? It just keeps happening. Every superhero movie gets a worse and worse box office opening. It's kind of hard to tell which one. So, is Joker Folie à Deux the one that has the lowest, or like is it Craven now? Because Craven came out. Is it
Well, Craven grossed less, but I think Joker 2 lost more money because it had a much
right?
bigger budget.
Is it the biggest one? Because I thought the Marvels was the biggest one.
Yeah, that's the biggest flop. Yeah,
Okay, Marvels is
but
still big.
in terms of like how bad of a performance it had in theaters,
Okay.
because Joker 2, like Battlefield Earth, opened with only a fraction of its production budget, had a massive drop off in its second weekend because of horrible word of mouth, like Battlefield Earth.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's in its third and fourth weekend, thousands of theaters were already just begging to get rid of it.
Oh man, what a, whew, man, what
I
a
guess
shit
it's more
show.
interesting in Joker 2's case is because that first movie was such a phenomenon when it came out.
Yeah.
And the first R-rated movie ever to make $1 billion. That you'd at least assume that people would still go and see it anyway, even if they hated it. Because look at
Yeah.
Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Everyone hated that movie, but it still made $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars is just—it's unstoppable, man. Like normies love Star Wars. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah,
like
but they'll still go see it even if it's bad. But
Yeah.
somehow Joker 2 couldn't manage that.
No, Joker 2 couldn't manage it. No. I think because I mean, one, why would you make a sequel to the Joker? But also two, yeah, I guess that horrible word of mouth really spread like the plague with that. I mean, granted, it was deserved because it was not a good movie. So,
Yeah, it was a bad movie.
just man, so boring. But yeah,
Battlefield Earth actually had a higher cinema score, though. Fun fact.
that I believe. Because I like Battlefield Earth more than I like Joker
Yeah.
2, so
That's true.
I would rather watch Battlefield Earth than Joker 2.
Yeah, same. I mean, I will say Joker 2, as bad as it is, there's more competent things in it, like in terms of cinematography. It's just that It's more boring though. It's not as hilarious though.
Yeah, I don't know, there's just no weight to anything in Joker 2. It's yeah, it's not the worst thing ever, but there's just nothing to it. It is boring. Whereas at least with Battlefield Earth, it took giant swings, you know? So it
Yeah.
was definitely a much bigger failure from that regard, but I don't know, I just find it vastly more entertaining. I feel like John Travolta wanted to make Battlefield Earth, whereas I don't think anybody wanted to make Joker 2.
They did it for the paycheck.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly it was a very good paycheck, $200 million
Yeah.
for some reason.
I mean, Todd Phillips got paid $20 million for it,
Whew.
and that entire weekend where it flopped, he was secluded on his own cattle ranch.
Sounds good to me, dude. Warner Brothers, give me $20 million. I'll write something.
And he just farted out a piece of shit.
Dude, dude, give me $20 million. I will come up with something bad, but something funny, you know?
Exactly. Like, you could have made a Battlefield Earth type movie where you just make a giant joke of a movie, but
dude,
you didn't, man.
Battlefield Earth 2. Let me write it.
Exactly.
I can write something.
I would love a Battlefield Earth 2.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be a sequel to this movie, actually, because it covers the first half of the book of the same name.
Okay.
But because the movie was such a huge failure that they never did it.
I mean, yeah. There's really not much else you could do. I mean, I guess if there is more to the story, I guess there's something there. Yeah, because they ended where they're just like, oh, if other cyclos come looking for you, then we can use you as leverage. It's like, yeah, okay, but I'm not. Yeah. I don't really care, you know.
Don't worry. In 50 years, I'll buy the rights and get Roger Christian to do it again.
Or the head of Roger Christian in a vat of fluids, like
saying our friendly bartender.
Yeah, friendly bartender. Well, he's gonna be dead by then in 50 years. But, no offense to the guy, but I mean, you know, but I was making a joke like he'll just come back like in Futurama, where like all the celebrities' heads and historical figures' heads are just in jars.
Oh yeah. Don't worry. By then it'll be seen as an understood masterpiece, so it has to have a sequel by 50 years.
That's true. Yeah. If every year we get worse and worse movies, and we get more and more revisionist history on a lot of bad movies from then, 50 years from now, then Battlefield Earth will be seen as one of the best movies ever made amongst like Citizen Kane. Oh boy, I can't wait to see how bad movies get then.
It'll be funny if like movies get so bad in the next like 25 years that like the Raspberry Awards Battlefield Earth an apology saying, "Oh, sorry, Battlefield Earth."
They rescind it. Ooh, that'd be that'd be great. That'd be great. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And then the Academy just steps in and says, "Here's your Oscar for playing Turtle on Battlefield Earth."
Yeah, instead of what won the year Battlefield Earth came out, what won the Oscar instead?
Gladiator.
Yeah, they just take it away from Gladiator.
The Academy just says, "Fuck Gladiator." Battlefield Earth wins.
Perfect. Oh.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that day.
There was a really interesting interview, from one of the screenwriters for this movie, Corey Mandel. There was a video of him from a few years ago giving like the whole like story behind why he like chose to write for this movie. And it was because it was really hard for him to find work on a screenplay that he could actually get credited for in a movie. So it almost entirely killed his career. But thankfully, like after that, he actually, it was a bit challenging after that, but he eventually found more work, and he also got a teaching job at UCLA. So,
yeah. Well, you know what? Bright side in everything. That's what I always say.
Yeah. That's a great interview. I'd actually recommend checking out. It's from the YouTube channel Film Courage. So
interesting.
I guess one thing I kind of want to ask is, if we were to make a movie similar to this, like we had to use the same premise and everything like that, same actors, whatever, what would we do to make it unironically better?
Oh,
I have a few ideas.
That's tough because honestly, I love the movie the way it is. I don't know if I'd change a thing,
it is.
But
I wouldn't change it either.
I'm interested to hear how you would make it unironically great.
Well, if not good or great, at least make it better. I would make all of the aliens obviously not dressed up in garbage cans.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're kind of like they're a more advanced human race essentially, where they dress differently essentially, and like instead of the humans just stealing a bunch of 1,000-year-old jets, they just steal a bunch of the alien equipment. But it's not because the Cyclos just gave them basic resources and to just basically let them defeat them at that ending of the movie, but it's because the humans actually outsmarted them. So
yeah, basic things, basic tweakings you would do. Yeah.
And not have every angle of the movie be a giant Dutch angle.
Just make it completely upside down at that point.
Exactly. Where all the characters are hanging upside down. Any other classic moments from this movie? Because there's a lot of there's some I might be missing. Oh, here's some lines from the movie. How the crap should I know?
How the crap
Move
should
your fat
I know?
ass. Move your fat ass and let's round them up. Then like that's when like Turl like bangs his head against the wall and says, "Crap, lousy ceiling."
Lousy ceiling.
Hope is an admirable quality, but foolish isn't. Oh, and there's also that one part in the movie where John Travolta's wife, Kelly Preston, makes a cameo as that one like cyclo chick, basically, where like she has a giant tongue on her.
Yeah.
And she says she is as happy as a baby cyclo on a diet of Kerbango.
Yeah. Kelly Preston makes a cameo. R.I.P.
Yeah. Remember she made a cameo in she had an appearance in the Cat in the Hat movie. So.
Yeah, she was the mother. She was also the mother in Sky High, so she was in good movies too.
She was in Gotti as well.
Oh well, never mind.
So whenever John Travolta makes a bad movie, she's always there to defend him.
I mean, she was his wife, so that probably makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's literally probably why she was in a lot of his movies was because she's his wife.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So, anything else? And do you have any other notes you want to say?
Do you own this or do you want to own this? Because
I was actually gonna get this on DVD on Sunday night, but I was like the Amazon listing said it wouldn't come until Friday, so I didn't order at the time. So I regret to inform you this is like the second episode on the podcast where I do not own a DVD of a movie that we talked about.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it's happened before where the guest doesn't have a DVD. Again, I don't have a DVD of it. Like the DVD for this episode was Planet 51. But you know what they always say, close one door, open another. And even though I'm getting rid of this Planet 51 DVD, I think I want to add Battlefield Earth DVD to the collection because this movie is funny bad. Like it is entertaining. I think I'm going to put it amongst the so bad it's good side of the collection for sure.
Absolutely.
Amongst Showgirls and Dune 1984 and Faust and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is one of my go-to so bad it's good movies too. So whereas I will not buy Planet 51 on DVD, I actually do want to buy Battlefield Earth on DVD.
Yeah, I think I do want it on a DVD too, like an actual like early 2000s DVD, because it is on Blu-ray. Weirdly enough, that is one of the movies that has actually made it to Blu-ray.
And release it on Criterion, you cowards.
I'm sure someday it'll get a 4K release if the irony level is that high. I don't know who will distribute it, but maybe Sony. No, I want it on like an early 2000s DVD. So it'll look crappier, but that's the way I likes it, man. That's the way I likes it.
For sure. Battlefield Earth is the perfect bad movie, and everyone who listens to this episode should go watch it.
Yeah. Honestly, it is worth watching at least once. Even if you don't get...
Watch it with your friends.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely watch it with friends. I mean, some of our friends didn't love it. I mean, they had fun. Like it was fun to watch, but like
Ginsid also found it funny. So that's a positive.
Because it is funny. Like I think, watch it with friends. Watch it at least once. If you don't get anything out of it, I think it is still worth watching because it is one of those notoriously bad films that people talk about all the time. So like, it is still worth watching. But yeah, watch it with friends for sure. It makes for a lot. It's a lot of fun.
I think I realized that the best way to watch so bad it's good movies. I didn't realize that until I was older, that the best way to watch them is to actually watch them with company. Because I remember I was like 16 or something like that when I watched The Room by myself, and I wasn't like having that much fun. And then I showed it to my dad like a couple years later, and we were laughing so hard. So
Yeah, I guess it depends on like the company you have, because like sometimes I will watch a bad movie with friends and they'll just be like, "This is horrible," and I'll be like, "Oh, okay, tough crowd, I
okay,
guess."
you hate fun.
Yeah. But also, I think that that's what happened with Faust. Is like sometimes the horrible reactions are part of the fun. Like watching Faust with friends who hate it is part of the fun of watching Faust. But it is also really fun watching it with friends who do unironically love it, like I do. So
Yeah, there are a lot of funny parts of Faust as well.
yeah, so I think this is the same thing. I think, yeah, like we've been saying, watch it with friends, because there is much fun to be had with it.
It is a better So Bad It's Good movie than most movies that people would call So Bad It's Good movies nowadays. Like like Madam Web for example, like I just don't think anything in that movie holds a candle to something like when you were learning how to spell your name, or do you want lunch?
Yeah,
nothing in that movie holds the same candle as that.
No, definitely not. Madam Web isn't even as funny as Morbius. I really don't see the appeal of Madam Web being a So Bad It's Good movie. Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, Battlefield Earth, way better.
Exactly.
All right, Lazy. I think it's that time of the show where you can shout out your stuff, dude. Where can people find you?
I am on YouTube. I am on Letterboxd. I have a Blue Sky account, and I'm gonna be continuing making more videos. I think as of right now, my next video I have currently planned is also about aliens in space and stuff like that, but it's not about Battlefield Earth or Planet 51. It's about a cult TV show that's about an alien that's also happens to be animated.
What's it on, actually?
Well, in case it ends up being my next video, I'd like to keep it a surprise, but
okay.
As of now, that's what I'm thinking of making my next video of.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, well, I'm glad it ties somewhat into the podcast theme tonight. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, as usual, your links will be down in the description below.
Awesome.
And yeah, thanks for coming on and talking about 2 space movies. We can add this to the collection of first of the year space movies that we've been doing, along with Interstellar, Buzz Lightyear Star Command, Apollo 13, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. You know, Planet 51 and Battlefield Earth, they really are in the same level as 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Exactly. We went from 2001 to Battlefield Earth. What an upgrade.
So, yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. Yeah, any quote we want to end the episode on?
Should it be the spell your name, you think?
Sure.
Always remember, when you're learning how to spell your name, I was being trained to conquer galaxies.
Hell yeah. All right. We've started 2025 off with a bang, for sure. Just